Fountains of Wayne were a New York-based power pop band. They're constituted of Chris Collingwood, Adam Schlesinger, Jodie Porter and Brian Young. They existed from 1995 to 1999, in which time they released 2 albums. Then they had a kind of hiatus, but they came back in 2003 with their 3rd album. After their 5th album in 2011, they kind of fizzled out. But now I understand they're officially finished after Chris Collingwood died in 2020, apart from a brief reunion that they had to commemorate his death. Hi, my name's Dan. So this was the 3rd album by Fountains of Wayne, and it's my first time listening to it. And this album was their comeback after they'd had this hiatus. And the hiatus had happened because they'd lost their contract with their label, and there was a certain amount of disillusionment at that point. So this was them picking themselves up off the floor, getting themselves back together, and releasing an album. And it's quite a strong album, I would say. So I have a copy of the next album after this one, which is Traffic and Weather. So I never really got into it as an album. I got it kind of at the sort of time when it was around. And I got it because I'd heard a track on the radio that was Fountains of Wayne, and I don't remember which track it was that I heard. I think it was one that was on the Traffic and Weather album, and I'm not sure I connected them with Stacey's Mom, which is a track that is very well known, which is on this album. So this is the thing that I tended to do at the time. If there was a track on the radio that I liked, and particularly if there was a band who did 2 tracks that I liked that got radio play, I'd then go, all right, let's try a bit more of them, and I'd buy a CD, which is what I did in this case. And I played it kind of 2 or 3, 4 times, and then never really played it again, and I never really got into it. Back to this album. So this is power pop, and it reminds me of people like the Rembrandts and Bare Naked Ladies and the New Pornographers. So I listened to reviewed one of their albums just a few before, an album that was released in the same year as this, 2003, and it has a similarity to it. To this in the kind of general feel. I think this was definitely a thing at this kind of time. However, yeah, I would say that this is musically fairly adventurous and varied. They've got one track that's very strongly country, which feels like they're parodying country. Don't know if that's the intent. Towards the end, it seems like they wanted to sound like Oasis, particularly, and maybe again they're parodying. So I don't know how much there is intent here to parodying particular styles. There is certainly lots of influences going on here, so it's quite diverse. And overall, it's kind of got a feel of, for me, like a softer version of some new punk, like that's new with NU, like Green Day and The Offspring and stuff like that, but not as crunchy and punky. Part of that is, I think, the way the processing that's used on the voice gives it a particular kind of compression that reminds me of, I think it's very similar to what was used with those bands. So that's why somehow I make a connection. This album is very radio friendly, I would say. The singing it's okay. It's got a fairly generic voice, so it's not a voice where you go, oh yes, I absolutely recognise that instantly. The thing that I really loved about this is the songwriting, which is boss. It's really strong, and it draws you in, or it drew me in anyway, very quickly. So it's just, they're really nicely written, good rhymes, good turns of phrase, very economic, but also witty at the same time. Apparently the songs are about middle-class life in New England. I'm not sure how much I can say that it's all like that. It's definitely kind of not quite story songs, but what I'm going to start calling setting songs. So they're kind of setting up some kind of situation or some person who's the protagonist who's talking about something. So it's not all songs from, personal song from a particular point of view. Definitely paints pictures, and I'd say cleverly written and put together. So if you like good pop rock songwriting, I'm going to particularly reference here Elvis Costello as being kind of the bar that I would measure a lot of them against. If you like that kind of thing, you might love this too. So I would say, in some ways, it's like those other bands that I referenced, Rembrandt's Bare Naked Ladies, but more interesting. by a couple of Nokias. So I really enjoyed it. It's a strong album. Um, as always, at this point, I'd like to invite you to tell me what you think of this album. So please do, please do by leaving me a comment. And the next review I'm going to do for the channel is the soundtrack album for The Sound of Music. But that's it from me for now.
Working all day for a mean little man with a clip-on tie and a rub-on tan. He's got me running around the office like a dog around a track. But when I get back home, you're always there to rub my back. Hey Julie, look what they're doing to me, trying to trip me up, trying to wear me